What is pro-aging? Not anti-aging, not aging for the most amount of years, but what is vital aging? What is wise aging? What is a sense of, we talk about body autonomy all the time. This is my body. I get to choose. So if we take that lens and move it towards aging, okay, what does that look like? What does it look like to age on your terms? Not in terms of trying to hustle to not look like you've turned 60, 70, 80, 90. But what is your idea of a really engaged, vital rest of your life?
Hello, my friend Nina.
Hi, Jenny. So fun to be with you.
Always. So, as we are recording this, my friend Nina has just celebrated a birthday. So, happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. And happy birthday to you, because your birthday was just last month.
Yes. And so, of course, this got us to thinking about what it is to age. Lots of conversation around that. The first thought that comes to me, Nina, is that it is a privilege to age. Truly a privilege. Whatever age you are, there are people who have never reached your age, right? And I'm very aware of that. If we go by genetics, I'm a little screwed, so I understand these things. But, it's really a privilege. And at the same time, we live in a society where aging isn't always appreciated.
That's a very gracious way to put it. I would say aging is undervalued. Aging is seen as diminishment. Aging is seen as sort of you're losing. There's loss in aging. There's also in our culture right now this wonderful pro-aging perspective that's come out. Some from the research of Rebecca Levy, who wrote Breaking the Age Code. And what she talks about is when we have a pro-aging attitude, right? We believe that aging is a good thing. We stand to gain 7.5 to 8 years versus if you stop smoking, you gain 2 years. You reduce your body mass index, you gain 1 year. Lower cholesterol, gain 1 year, right? So the dramatic difference of you feel that aging is a positive thing is fantastic. And this research has been out for a few years, but here's what I'm seeing happen is the anti-aging industry is taking this research and going, good, so now let's monetize that.
Well, sure. Do you remember back in the 80s, the Stone Ages? There was a book called Life Extension by Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw at the time. They were thought to be heretics at the time. And here we are, 40 years later, and their work is really the basis of a lot of the research that's being done right now. And I think we have to clarify our terms here because you and I are talking about aging. Most the industries that support this are really talking about never dying. They're talking about living long enough not to die, which is obviously not possible. There's a distinction between lifespan and health span, right? And health span, which is coined by any number of clinicians now, is really dependent on three major things, according to a lot of research, right? One is community. How involved are you in a number of communities so that you have a sense of belonging, right? Two is making sure that you get enough sleep at all costs, another area in which I am screwed completely. And the third area, which really has to do with just keeping your body in motion. Now, it's interesting that you said, some of the research will say that if a BMI is reduced, and we both hate the term BMI, but we understand what we're talking about here, that may have some impact on longer life. I would say, however, that that's not always true. It's really, body size doesn't necessarily have an impact on lifespan. It has an impact on how you see yourself. If you see yourself a particular way and you walk the world the way you walk the world, you are absolutely going to live longer than someone who is worried every moment, every second of every day about what they look like, what their body size is. I don't have the measurements to prove what I just said, but I feel very strongly about that. Yeah.
Well, and I want to reel back right away to what you said, lifespan versus health span. And I'd like to shift that term actually, culturally, if I could, from health span to vitality, right? How do we feel vital? How do we feel alive? What's our definition of feeling alive and engaged versus here are my health metrics? And then that makes me more engaged, more likely to live longer, right? I think about it. I have a friend who's dying, and she's dying of brain cancer. And I was visiting her. It's heartbreakingly sad. And I was visiting with her, and to watch her lifespan definitely be diminished, but her health clearly not good. Big cancer, terrible cancer, but her vitality was right there, right? She was right there in the small increments of time that she could be. She was vital and engaged, right? I made a recipe that she had taught me how to make. And I brought it and I said, can you taste it and tell me, what do you think? Because she was an amazing cook. And she was like, and this is somebody who's not walking right now. And she said, it's missing basil. Can you put more basil? I was like, I totally forgot the basil. And she was like, right, like it's right there. She was in the vitality of life. What is more vital in life than food and flavor? So if we can sort of drop this idea of this perfect health or this right way to get old, and be like, what makes us feel alive?
Well, you're also talking about engagement, right? I mean, think about all the structures that are in place that tell us we should stop working at a certain time. I don't know about you, that doesn't apply to me. It's never going to apply to me. I think I'm just going to one day stop talking and then we'll know I died because there's no reason for me to stop doing what I love. I also think it's worth saying out loud that ageism is very gender specific. Just go to Hollywood, right? Women have been fighting to have major movie roles. As soon as they turn 50, they feel like they should just sort of, change professions. And men will, be cast into their 80s. Just the idea that a man can still produce a child into their 70s and, which they have, and doesn't mean they should, but they do. And, we have a clock. Just in terms of reproduction, we have a clock. And if that's something that's important to you, then that's a way to feel like, oh, I guess I'm not needed anymore. Except that if you've had the privilege of going through menopause or still going through it or about to go through it, when you put the physical symptoms of it aside, what a privilege and what a journey. What a moment you have to really take stock, reclaim, and just write the next chapters.
What you're walking us into, Jenny, is a really important question, is what is that for us individually, right? What is pro-aging, not anti-aging, not aging for the most amount of years, but what is vital aging? What is wise aging? What is a sense of, we talk about body autonomy all the time. This is my body. I get to choose. So if we take that lens and move it towards aging, okay, what does that look like? What does it look like to age on your terms? Not in terms of trying to hustle to not look like you've turned 60, 70, 80, 90. But what is your idea of a really engaged, vital rest of your life? So I want to ask you, like when you think of that, what comes up for you?
Well, I mean, certainly I'm aware that my body is shifting and changing. It reminds me every day, in various ways. And I have to say that I embrace it because it means I'm still here. And it means that I'm aging. And so for me, engagement is about my work, all the aspects of my work. It's about relationships. And I'm very aware that there's a greater chance that the older I get, I may lose more people in my life. But by the way, that's not just age specific. You know, as someone who's, I'm going to call myself sort of older middle age, I've already lost a lot of people, right? So and there are people who don't experience that until later. So it's really, I truly think it's about how you position yourself. I am very aware that we all have a clock. We just do. And that clock runs out whenever it runs out. Now, I have two choices. I can sit around waiting to see when that happens, or I can be careful but healthy and also just as vital as I know how to be in the things I love to do, whether that's music, whether that's entertainment, whether that's my work, culture, travel, whatever charges my battery. That's what it's about. And I'm aware, by the way, that that's a statement of privilege.
But there's two things that you're talking about in there, right? One is what turns me on in life, what makes me feel truly alive. And the other thing that you said was, oh, we are always walking with grief. We're walking with the grief of losing people, and we're also walking with the grief that we have a timeline. There is an end. And in that, implicit in that, is there will be loss. So how do we, it's like really walking through the next, because the first 40 years you think, yeah, nothing's going to happen. It's all good, right? And then the next 40, 50 years comes reality. And the reality that you're laying out is we're both in how do we be turned on in life and how do we be really in the preciousness of life because of loss of all types.
I'll go further and say that, let's just say that grief is one side of the hand, appreciation is the other side of that hand. And they're very hard to jump from one to the other sometimes. You know, we talk about all the time that there's such an enormous amount of time that's wasted when people, and women specifically, keep deriding themselves for the bodies they think they should have, did have, could have, would have had, all of that, right? There's a grief in that, right? There's nothing more disturbing to me than if you look on social media, there are all these AI-generated comparisons that are being done where they'll take an actress and they take you through every decade of her life. And I'm thinking, oh my God, if I was watching that for myself, what would I think? And then I catch myself, because what I would think is, yes, my appearance has changed. That's how you know I've aged. And I'm assuming internally I've changed in some ways too. But most importantly, I know that I've changed intellectually, spiritually, and emotionally as well. And I have an appreciation for this body that I've put through a lot so far, and I hope to put it through much more. But appreciation sort of tends to tend to the grief a bit in my experience.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful foil for grief and appreciation, right? I look at my mom who's 94 and declining. Yeah. And there's both the grief of losing all of who she used to be and the appreciation, but it's also the appreciation of everything she's done in her life, all the ways that she has grown and the wisdom that she's accrued. And so I want to sort of shift our conversation to how do we as a culture and personally shift from we shouldn't be looking old or what the sort of downside of aging to how do we be in the wow, here's somebody with all this life experience. When we have a culture that's saying both don't age, that's the anti-aging, or if you're going to age, you better do it exactly right. You better jump 500 times a day. You better eat 500 grams of protein a day. You better, whatever it is, 500 times, right? The extreme pressure to do it right.
Well, and lest we say that what's the other message that's always sitting there, right? Which is not only don't age, but do it thinly if you don't mind.
Yes,
right? So don't age and be thin and just, remain a frozen robot. And then, then you will have achieved something. And, it's just, I'm making light of it, but it is a pressure that's ever present.
Well, it starts to go down to something basic like Botox.
Right.
Which I don't know that I would have put basic and Botox in a sentence together 5 years ago. But here we are in an era where so many people, that feels like maintenance to them. But what does it do? Oh, I'm not going to show my age on my face. You and I were at a conference, remember? And I said, everybody was so young there. And you were like, they're not as young as you think they are. They just have had a lot of Botox. And I was like, oh,
Right.
right.
And
These
just to be
are
clear,
women with experience speaking
yes.
from their expertise, but they're supposed to look like they're in their 30s, not in their 40s and 50s.
Well, this is a whole big topic because actually, I mean, again, body autonomy, people get to do whatever they want. We have no judgment. It's just an observation that in the last 20 years, the average age of a person who begins to use something that will alter their appearance is much younger. There are women and possibly men as well in their late 20s, early 30s that are already doing that. Now,
But I'm like,
first of all,
why?
I'm just always amazed people have the money.
What
to
is
do
going
that.
on there?
Well, it's the same thing we've always been subject to. It's anti-aging, it's diet culture. And by the way, there are people who work in the corporate sector who would say you are naive if you think that you can just walk around appreciating your age and appreciating your wisdom, and that if you don't look a certain way or look as vital as you think you should look, you will be out of a job. That may be true, right?
Yep,
Certainly,
absolutely.
there are
We have a
actors and
judgy
actresses
culture.
in Hollywood that would agree with that statement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you and I don't really walk that walk, right? I don't even begin to know what that would be like. But what I do know is that we can stamp our feet, we can bang our heads against the wall, we can spend all kinds of money, we can do anything we want not to age. Here's the thing. We're aging every second. So I'm simply saying, how do we find ways to embrace that and also enjoy it? Enjoy some of the benefits of aging. I'll give you one that comes to me immediately. It occurred to me somewhere in the last few years that my thinking shifted in that I truly don't give a hoot what people think. I truly don't. And yeah, sure, I have an awareness of other. I have an awareness of the public. I have an awareness of perception, sure. But in the end, I actually don't care. I care about people's opinions. I want to hear, I want to be open to them. But I don't run my life now, worrying about what I think someone is thinking about me. Because the truth is, I don't even really know. But we think we know what other people are thinking.
Yeah.
Enormous
And I
mystery.
think that all falls in this frame around archetypal psychology when they talk about like women moving through the princess stage and into the queen stage. Princess stage in your 20s and 30s. What do you think of me? My identity is how I am perceived, right? Versus the queen stage in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, which is I know who I am. I don't care what you think. My sense of knowing comes internally, and I am the queen of my own queendom, and I give myself the authority versus you saying, oh, I approve of you. And we all want to step into that queen stage and then crone stage and that sense of deep knowing and not get stuck, which our culture does, is get us stuck in princess stage, which is I still need your stamp of approval. And what that does is it makes us a product, right? Our body, just whether it's thin, whether it's wrinkle-free, whether it's, whatever the look is, that somehow is the product. Like when you talk about corporate life, that's the product that they're buying which is an external product, versus who are we? What is our soul journey? What's going on in a very deep knowing, wise level that we bring into the world, and the world goes, sorry, I don't like the packaging on that. I'm not buying.
I love the word queendom, by the way. I love that word. It begs the question, are we still subject to patriarchy? And of course we are. Because we're sitting here, thinking we're rather independent women, which we are by and large, right? But lest we forget, we're now back in the abortion debate. Lest we forget that it's true. I heard something recently which just blew my mind. which is that it's only been 50 years that women were able to get a credit card, right?
Isn't that wild?
And when you think about how long we are voting in this country compared to the age of the country, right? It's just, it's remarkable. I mean, certainly our warriors like Gloria Steinem are very aware of those markers in history, right? I do respect where we are in our history. I respect how much work there is to do. I find it remarkable, by the way, not to wax politically here, but I find it remarkable that in this country that we're recording from in the United States, where we think we're so hot, we're one of the only countries that hasn't had a female leader.
I know. I was just thinking that. I was like, how is it? How is it that we are here? But that says everything about the power of men and the diminishment of women. And every time historically, women have had more power, more agency. Our culture goes, and you should be thinner. You should be smaller. Here, we've got something new for you to make you small and get obsessed with your body, right? As Naomi Wolf's quote of, women obsessed with their body become that, so focused on that they don't have the power.
I'll always take every opportunity to bring in Barbra Streisand because, she fits in this conversation here now.
In any conversation.
Yeah, but sure. But certainly in this one. I mean, she just turned 83 this week as we're recording. And she has been interviewed wildly about this idea that she's an EGOT, which is a very, very small group of people, that have Emmys, Grammys, Oscars, Tonys, right? And she has done it all, and yet she was always perceived as a bitch. She was always perceived as, someone who was hard to work with. And I've heard her interviewed a number of times, and she said, I promise you that I create this very caring environment and that I have high standards. And that is how I've been able to do what I do. And I promise you that if I were a man, nobody would be saying a word. And I believe that's true. I mean, I think she opened the doors for many women in all of those fields. Yeah. So kudos to Barbara. Yes.
Always. Okay. Let's take a few minutes and really talk about, if we want to walk into this vital aging, wise aging, powerful aging, our own ownership of aging, how do we do that? What are first steps?
I would say first of all, and it almost sounds too easy, it truly is a positioning that you take. It's a state of mind. And, you have to sort of do a self-inventory in order to take that position. You have to give honor and respect to, what was the culture in the home in which you were raised? What is the culture in which you live? And how have you been valued or not valued in your life, either by people that you love, people that you've worked with, whatever your environments are, and to take stock of that and inventory and really develop almost like an appreciation list where you say, and this is what we do also when we want someone to, we invite people to like their bodies better, right? Is to do an inventory, not like which parts do you like. It's more like what has your body been through? What has your soul been through? What has your being, your essence been through? Give yourself the credit for the thing, because it's easy to forget how much you've been through by age 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, lots and lots of things. And sure, on that list, there will be things that you wish you had handled differently, but there's no room for regret in aging. Instead of regret, it's more about learning. This is what I would have, could have done. And I see that now. And isn't that great that I have now the wisdom to hopefully make some different choices as I move through my life? I mean, that would be the first step in my mind.
And what you're talking about is growth mindset, right? I've always been growing. I've always been evolving, right? And one of the parallels you make is, how we work with women around their sense of body image and how they feel about their bodies, also looking at the culture. Did they grow up in a diet culture? Did they grow up in a culture where they were allowed to eat whatever they want? Same with aging. What's the culture that you grew up with? Did it revere people with wisdom and years? Did it diminish them? Did older people become invisible? So those are two really powerful ways to start, which is look at what the beliefs are that you have, and then use all of that as information of how do I grow from here? How do I evolve into more of me?
Well, yes, and I think, look, there are basics of life, right? We need to attend to our physical and emotional well-being. We need to attend to making sure that our concrete needs are met. And as we get older, depending on what your station in life is, whatever your financial status is, there's still the responsibility of making sure that you have what you need. But then there's also this idea of really taking the time to pursue the things that truly charge your soul. Now, I'm aware that there are people listening to us who say, yeah, great idea, but you know what? I've been so busy being, a working stiff, or tending to my children, or tending to my husband, or tending to my partner, or tending to my wife, or tending to everyone, an aging parent, whatever it is, who's had time to figure out what I like? Got it, heard it, honor it. The time is now. The time is now to truly do an inventory and say, what is the one thing that someone could wake me in the middle of the night and I would jump up to do it? Or what is the one thing you never have to ask me twice about? Or what is the one thing I am naturally drawn to without even thinking about it? And don't judge it. Just start to make a list of those things. And I believe, what occurs is that you start to see this list of the things that got abandoned.
Yeah. Like what turns me on? What turns me on? What gives me vitality? If you want a turned on aging life, if you want a life of vitality, you got to figure out what those things are. And that's something that we feel into.
I love asking adults this question. I'm going to ask you this question and then I'll answer it also. If someone asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? When you were 10, what would you have said?
Oh, gosh.
It's a tough one, right?
But
it's a place to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's I think that's where our passions are. I think if someone asked me at 10, what did I want to be when I grow up? Believe it or not, I said an attorney. I said lawyer. I didn't know the word attorney yet. But at 10, I said I wanted to be a lawyer. I have no idea why. But I pay attention to that. Not that I became one, but there's something in that about justice, about, debate.
Defending.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
defending for what's right. Which we do right here. The place we want to leave everybody in this conversation is to step into that vitality that you have within you now, because that's what's going to guide your future. That's what's going to create an aging where you feel engaged and alive.
And I like to leave our listeners with a concrete tip. I am a very, very big fan of journaling, and journaling has many different forms. I don't say you have to create a diary. There's something about allowing yourself just the freedom of thought and to just make notes about the things you love. Like, just notice when you react to things. Notice if you see a piece of art and you have a physical experience to that. Make a note of it. Notice if, no matter what you're doing, just take the time to do that inventory. What are the things I love? What are the things I miss, right? And start there. And that's your vitality list.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
And happy birthday,
Jenny.
Nina.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening.